Neutron's EQ module is a very capable processor with a few extra bonus features. You have a total of 12 bands, 8 peaking bands, plus high and low shelves, and high and low cut filters. Most of the display is taken up with the graph. You can make the standard EQ settings right from there. Dragging a node up or down sets the gain, boost or cut. Dragging sideways adjusts the frequency. And dragging the small handle adjusts the Q, the bandwidth. I'll assume everyone's already familiar with those basic parametric EQ parameters. Pop-up readouts help you zero in on precise settings. There are a few convenience features when working in the display. Holding Shift restricts dragging to one direction, horizontal or vertical, for more precise adjustments. Holding Command lets you select and edit multiple bands together. And holding Option and clicking on a node solos that band to help you get a better idea of the effect that band is having on the overall sound. You can also make these same settings numerically below by dragging or double-clicking to type in a specific value. This lower panel can be hidden if you prefer a larger graph area. The display itself has a number of options for the frequency scale. Depending on the kind of EQing you're doing, broad tonal shifts versus surgical tweaks, the different scales can make it a lot easier to see what you're doing or to visualize some tight settings that the track assistant may have dialed up automatically. In the Options dialog under EQ, you can choose to enable or disable the real-time spectrum display, as well as the note display in the graph. The lower panel settings, naturally, vary depending on the type of EQ band selected. For the filters, besides the frequency slider, you have a choice of several slopes: 6, 12, 24, and even 48 dB per octave, plus a resonant filter response. In that mode, the Q slider becomes active and you can set the strength of the resonant peak. The high and low shelves also provide a selection of useful curves. The basic shelf option is a standard shelving response. The Baxandall curves are modeled after the broad response curves of traditional bass and treble controls, like you'd find in a stereo. These can be used to dial up a more gentle tilt, especially if used together. The vintage curves introduce a positive or negative resonant peak or dip just before the chosen corner frequency. Like the vintage EQ in Ozone, this is based on the response of the Pultec EQ, a classic analog tube EQ which exhibited that kind of response. It lets you, for example, dial up a stronger treble boost that might normally result in too much mid-range harshness, but the corresponding dip will soften any excess presence. Or a bass bump can be dialed up without adding too much boom, which will be ameliorated by the corresponding dip in response. Of course, you could work out the same curves with multiple bands, but this makes it easy to get that very useful response more quickly and easily with only a single band. The peaking EQs offer two different responses. The band shelf provides a shape similar to a standard EQ bell curve, but with a slightly more flattened top. This can sometimes be a little less peaky, say, when applying larger amounts of boost. A proportional Q is another specific type of bell curve. With some EQs, you set a Q value, but as you increase or decrease gain, the curve maintains its shape and as a result affects a wider range of frequencies as you get further away from flat response. With a proportional Q, the bandwidth narrows as you increase or decrease gain, limiting its effect to the same range of frequencies at both smaller and larger gain settings. This allows for more precise control and can result in less interaction between bands, useful for corrective EQ applications. The bonus feature of this EQ is that it can be operated on a per-band basis as a dynamic EQ. I'll pick up there in the next clip.